Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant. We're excited to be back with you for another week. Just want to say thanks real quick to all of our listeners. We had our first episode of the season, of the new year last week, and my goodness, we got a ton of new listeners,
Right?
Which is awesome.
Yeah,
and
that's exciting.
The most downloads that we have ever had in a week, and one day, the most downloads we ever had in a day. So we're excited, and this is just a perfect opportunity to kind of springboard off of what it was your message really last week because of something that we heard Catherine Wolfe share.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna kind of this is a perfect way to jump into kind of the next steps sort of a thing, because we talked about last week. If you haven't listened, you need to go back and listen, because we talked about he didn't leave. Yeah. And when Catherine Wolfe, who is wheelchair bound because of a stroke that happened with her, and we got to hear her speak at Passion a couple of weeks ago, and she was amazing. And she just sort of made a comment that her husband didn't leave her through the hard times, and that just really struck a chord with you because of our story and us walking through infidelity, and you just being able to pull that out and say you didn't leave. And so we were able to challenge all of our listeners. Hey, marriage is hard. That's right. And we want to encourage you to stick it out. And so some of you that listen, you may be like, okay, we actually, I know I'm talking a little bit, but I'm really excited because we got a message.
You got to share that message. Yeah. It was amazing.
Well, you can tell the gist
of
it.
It basically was a lady who wrote in and said that she had just been battling, just praying and asking God to give her, just kind of to release her so that she could divorce her husband, and just was saying, could you, I just need affirmation that this is what you want me to do. Should I leave? Should I leave? Should I leave? And she had never heard our podcast before, and happened upon it, listened to the podcast, and wrote in to tell us that she heard that God just used our podcast for her to hear so clearly, do not leave. And just the power of God being able to use something so trivial as a podcast so powerfully in somebody's life.
Yeah, that was an amazing story. And so, like I said, we're going to be able to today. There's some of you that may have listened last week and you said, okay, I'm going to stick this out, but now what? Now what? Mm-hmm. What do we do? There may be some of you that are just in the season of, man, just really struggling, need some next steps. But then there's also some of you that are just doing great, and you're like, okay, but we want to do even better.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
We've got something for you, and this is going to be an amazing episode because we have a guest, and our guest is Julie Baumgardner, and she is the Senior Director for WinShape Marriage. And first of all, we just want to say welcome. We're so
Julie.
Glad you're with us.
I am so excited to be with you guys. I've been looking forward to this.
We've been trying for several weeks.
God's timing, always perfect.
That's right. We were able to connect with Julie several weeks ago through a Zoom call. Had a great time just chatting and catching up and talking marriage ministry. And we were like, we got to do our podcast. And then life got in the way for a while. Sickness. You went hoarse one time.
That's right.
and we had to postpone. So, but here we are. And so, I listen to so many podcasts, and sometimes when there's guests, people will just take like a bio sheet and just read it. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, you're here. So I want you, like, who is Julie? Like, I want you to just tell us, who is Julie?
Well, I am Julie Baumgardner, married to Jay. We're in our 34th year of marriage, which is very exciting to us because we're both children of divorce. We have a daughter, Ashley, who is 29. She lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and she's married, and we have 2 grand dogs. And I um, I knew at an early age. I actually had a brother who had a lot of special needs. He was 95% hearing impaired, and for most of his life functioned at about a first grade level. And then I have a sister who's 5 years younger. And, I thought I was growing up in this perfect family. And had the rug pulled out from underneath me right before I was going off to college when my dad came home and said, I'm leaving. And I was a real daddy's girl. So when that happened, it was very devastating. And I had already decided that I was going to major in psychology because of life with my brother. He and I were very close. I actually taught him to talk because I went to speech and hearing with him from the time I was born on.
Wow.
And so we just were very, very close. And I had thought I would work with families with children with special needs. And then my dad left. And when he left, he truly left, not just my mom, but all of us. And that was when God just, I will never forget sitting in my psychology professor's office right before Christmas. And I said, I don't want to go home. All of this is so awful. I don't know what to do. And he looked at me and he said, this is awful. And you have to acknowledge that. You don't know how God is going to take this and use you to pour into other people's lives in the future. And I just want you to think about that. So that's a little bit of who I am. I'm very passionate about what I do. And I just thought if I live the rest of my life and I help one person to know how to do married well, okay, that's great. But that's what I'm going to spend my life doing because I think it's worth it.
Yeah. Well,
Amen.
that's a great testimony, and you're obviously living that out through what you do. But you were in another, I guess, nonprofit. You were CEO of a nonprofit for over 20 years, and then just recently you made this shift into WinShape Marriage. So, can you just kind of tell us about that shift and that calling?
Yes. So I helped to start a nonprofit based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee called First Things First, which is also dedicated to helping people have strong, healthy relationships. And I honestly thought that I would retire from there. And then God came calling. And I just absolutely felt like I was being led to move to this ministry of WinShape, the WinShape Foundation, which was started in the early 80s by Mr. Cathy. And it started out as a college program, a ministry to help college students learn leadership and discipleship skills while they were in college, and then launching them out into the world. And then WinShape camps came along, so camps for kids across the country as well as residential at WinShape, which the campus for WinShape is on the Berry College campus. And then we have WinShape Teams, which is leadership development, WinShape Homes, which is group homes, and foster parenting. Mr. Cathy felt very strongly that every child deserved to grow up in a home that was safe and stable, so they would have this environment where they could thrive. And then WinShape Marriage was the last ministry to be part of the foundation. So we're all based out of Rome, Georgia, doing things across the country. And WinShape Marriage is really committed to helping couples grow closer to each other and closer to the Lord, however you engage us, whether it's digitally or coming to a retreat on the campus at Berry College.
You mentioned Mr. Cathy, so I know that most everybody that's listening to this probably knows the name Cathy, but for those of you who may not, Julie is speaking of Truett Cathy, who is the founder of Chick-fil-A, and just an incredible man who's gone on and he's passed away and has gone on to be with the Lord over the last few years, but the stuff that he started, it's amazing, the legacy
It is amazing.
And all of and so all of his children and his grandchildren, and they're all picking up what he started, and WinShape is such a huge part of it. And and we have a bit of a connection too. We know so many, I mean, family and friends and everybody that works there and does things, but we can't even wrap our brains around everything. I mean, and even as you were spouting off all the WinShape stuff, I was like, oh my goodness, yes, that and that and that. There's so much. But tell us, so you are directly responsible for WinShape Marriage, and so we talk about WinShape Marriage a lot on our podcasts and social media and stuff, because it made a huge difference in saving our marriage 11 years ago when we were walking through infidelity. And we attended a marriage intensive, but there's so much more to WinShape Marriage. So if you just tell us like what all there is that marriage, the listeners out there, what can they get involved in?
I hope we have something for everyone. That is what we have really tried to do. We actually start with premarital. We have a premarital retreat that goes on from Friday to Sunday. And early on, when I first got to WinShape, a lot of folks, when they would attend the premarital, they would say to us, okay, well, so what's next? What should I go to next? And I realized we really didn't have anything that was specifically geared towards the early years in marriage, but I had worked a lot with couples in the early years, and what they would say to me is, well, we went to premarital, but there were all these things that they talked about, like having difficulty communicating and managing conflict and all that, and we were like, oh, that doesn't apply to us. We're not going to have those issues. And then we were married for a hot minute, and we wished that we had actually listened more closely to the things that were said. So our team decided to come up with a newlywed track. So we have the premarital, and then we have the first 5, Intimacy 101, which is taught by Julie Slattery. She's a clinical psychologist, and she's absolutely phenomenal. I tell people all the time, if you ask me, what do I go to next, do the intimacy one, because there's so much that people come to marriage with, unspoken expectations, baggage. Some people are bringing trauma. And if you can go to that, it will really help you get your marriage off to a great start, understanding intimacy, the gift that it is. The Lord has given this amazing gift, and culture has taken it and done crazy things. So Intimacy 101, and then Preparing for Baby and Vision for Your Marriage. Those are all part of the newlywed track. And then beyond that, we have retreats like Thriving Marriages, Thriving Families, which is specifically geared towards people who are raising kids and in the thick of it. And the premise of that is that the culture tells you once children come along, children should come first. They should be front and center. But the research and the word tell us that actually it is putting your marriage first. It's the priority. And in doing that, that is like wrapping a security blanket around your children. So marriage first, children second. And then we have others like Visionary Parenting that Rob Reno and his wife Amy are teaching, to other experiences like Courageous Communication, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's being willing to have some hard conversations. I think the thing about marriage, I've been doing this work, almost 40 years. That's kind of crazy to think about. But in the time that I've spent with couples, I just remind them what is worth having that you don't actually have to spend some time working on, whether it's your golf game, your career, learning how to cook, friendships. I mean, we're willing to put the time into a lot of other things, but when it comes to marriage, it's like, why does this have to be so hard? And I think God has a great sense of humor, because he's like, hey, I'm bringing y'all together, And I know foundationally you believe the same thing faith-wise, and you have the same values, and you are in love. But you're like, I'm really going to need to be at the center of this in order for y'all to learn how to dance together well, because you're different. And different isn't deficient, it's just different.
Right.
So how do you engage each other? How do you see each other through the eyes of Christ? How do you remind each other that oh, my spouse is made in the image of Christ, just like I am. And just like I have weaknesses and I have opportunities for growth, so do they. And they also have strengths, and they also have gifts, and they're here with purpose. So it's my job to walk alongside this person and help them be all that God has called them to be, and vice versa. So I love the conversation that you were having about the woman who was really praying about whether to leave or not. And we all know that there are circumstances, abuse, addiction, and infidelity. When you're trying to walk that road by yourself, that's very, very complicated.
Yeah.
Seeking professional help, like the intensives or counseling, can help you deal with things in a healthy way and understand the way forward. So I love it that you all were talking about that. And I think it's really important to understand that every marriage, I mean, we're not looking for perfect, we're looking for healthy.
Yeah.
And so getting an idea of what healthy looks like, that's what courageous communication does. That's what our wholehearted marriage retreat does. It's really focusing on safety. Your marriage should be the safest place on earth. And then we have Empty Nest Success, which is a new one this year that we're really focused on people. I hope people will come before they're in the empty nest to this one, because preparing, I mean, I can remember when our daughter left, I looked at my husband and I said, how is it that one other person made so much more noise in our house? It's like the silence is deafening here. And I mean, it is an adjustment. So we really tried to look at what people have told us they want, and we have tried to create offerings around those areas so that we can be relevant for what people need now. We even created one called Soul Care for Your Marriage, because people coming out of COVID, they were like, man, my soul is not good, and the soul of our marriage is not good, and we just need some help. So
that's good.
Well, I love that you guys are like a one-stop shop for all marriages, and it hits home to us because we're sort of the same way. We balance this, the attraction that people have to our story, and which they obviously do. People that are in deep crisis or having a really hard time in their marriage, they're attracted to our story because it brings them hope.
That's right.
But at the same time, we learn so much through the crisis that we have this bag of tools that we're like, we want everybody to hear this before they have the trouble. So, even like with our marriage coaching, we have two different tracks. We have a track that's the road to redemption, but then we also have the marriage you've always wanted. So, and so I love that. I mean, we seem to be, what you guys are doing is what we're trying to do too. We want to be able to help all marriages. And, as I was thinking about all the different stuff that you guys are offering, obviously you mentioned the marriage intensive, and we get lots of questions about that. Because people know we talk about it from time to time. We even show pictures from 11 years ago when we were at WinShape in Rome, Georgia. And so, we post those pictures from time to time, and we put a link to you guys and Hope Restored. And we're just like, hey, this is, if you need an intensive, this is what you need to do. So can you just tell, just because I know there's a lot of people out there that listen to us that have asked us about it. So tell us a little bit more about the marriage intensive.
There are two different entities that provide intensives at WinShape. One is Focus on the Family, Hope Restored, and then Center for Relational Care. And both of them create a week-long experience where couples can come and be in a sequestered setting. And I think this is a really big piece. Just getting away from the distraction, being able to focus on the issue at hand, and to experience in a small group counseling setting, one, you're not alone. I mean, most in these situations, a lot of times we come thinking, my situation is the worst. Nobody will probably be able to relate to that. And what they find is that there are others who have experienced similar situations, and everybody is trying to figure out the way forward. So therapists guide you through these therapeutic experiences to help you learn tools to help you get to the root of what is happening, and strategies for how to move forward, to be able to have heart talks about hard things, and actually do that without walking away. For a lot of us, we didn't see conflict handled well in our home. And so we may have the best of intentions, but we just don't have the tools in our tool belt to help us connect emotionally, to have the hard conversations, to even brainstorm how do we move forward. And sometimes part of that is being able to just hit the pause button and say, okay, I can't even actually think straight at the moment. I need to breathe. I need to go take a walk, or I just need to do something different so that I can come back and fully engage in order to figure out what makes sense moving forward. So I love that the setting is sequestered, it's safe, the food, everything is taken care of for you, so that really all you have to do is focus on you and what does God have for you here? What is he saying to you? How's he using the therapist and the others to pour into you, to help you heal, and then be able to, go back home and move forward.
I love that you said that it was a sequestered environment, because I remember for us, we had a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old at home, and it's hard to do heart work when you are trying to deal with kiddos at home. And so just being away, and I kind of giggled on you when you said the food, because that was absolutely one of the most amazing parts.
I mean, you cannot be hangry and deal with hard things.
Right. And they just had an amazing chef there that just took care of all of those needs. And that was absolutely one of the highlights.
Yeah, Heather and I caught eyes a couple of times when you were talking about the intensive, because it just brings back so many memories. But I'm guessing that a lot of our listeners, or some of our listeners that have been with us for a while, their ears perked up when you said the word heart talk.
Yes.
Because we talk about, I'm telling you, we learned lots of stuff, but that might be the one thing that stuck with us more than anything. And we've had multiple episodes on this podcast about heart talk. So it's just an amazing ministry, and we're gonna try now. I hate to say things we're gonna do while I'm on the podcast, because you just never know what's gonna happen. But we're gonna try actually to do a video this week where we can sort of follow up and sort of share our story of the intensive, because we didn't want to take a bunch of time. We just wanted for you to be able to share on this, but our listeners can kind of pay attention and be on the lookout for that. What I wanted to ask, I guess, kind of getting away a little bit from the programming and stuff, is just like, in all of your years of doing marriage ministry and working with marriages, what do you feel like right now? Do you feel like more couples are coming, to ministries like yours and like WinShape because they're in some sort of a crisis, or they're having these major issues? Or is it more of people are just like, hey, I want to do this right. I want to get better.
Or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah, but have you seen a trend one way or the other?
Interesting that you asked that. I would tell you it's both, and we are definitely seeing very steady interest in the intensive experience. And I love that people are reaching out, that they're not just trying to do it on their own, but that they're
Yep.
reaching out for help. So that is a beautiful thing, and I strongly encourage people to ask for help, because a lot of times people go to their friends and their friends give them advice and they're very sincere about the advice, but they're sincerely wrong.
Yep.
So I think it's very important, just like you wouldn't take your car to just anybody and say,
Yeah.
what's going on underneath the hood? Don't just trust your marriage
That's
to
right.
just anybody. You want to take it to someone who can really help you. And then on the flip side of that, we are absolutely full with people coming to the retreats. And I think that that's a great indicator that people are wanting to be intentional about caring for their relationship and understanding that just having it on autopilot is not going to serve their marriage or their family well. I tell people frequently that the moment that any of us think that our marriage is not vulnerable is the moment you are most vulnerable.
That's right.
So the fact that people are coming and are seeking to really engage in some of our retreats, I mean, they're romantic adventures and play with a purpose, the challenge course. I mean, we're actually teaching you through the process, not teaching you through sitting. And I love that, because I think that there's a lot of people who don't want, I mean, they sit all week. They don't want to come and sit more. So we're trying very hard to create experiences that provide a variety of learning opportunities, so that you're not just sitting and soaking, you're actually out and doing and having conversations and playing and eating and fellowshipping and taking in information. So I think that it's a both and I love it and I want more of it.
And that's a great answer, and I was hoping that you would say that. I wanted you to say what you really felt, but at the same time, I want people that are listening, to know that they're not the only ones. There's plenty of people that are in crisis mode, but at the same time, there's marriages that are, they just want to do it better and they want to learn. So.
And our pastor says often, it's okay not to be okay. It's just not okay to stay there. And that is that's what I want our listeners to hear, that if you're in a spot where you're not okay, that's okay, but let's not get stuck there. Let's do something about it, which coming to WinShape, any of these things you have talked about is such a great idea for I'm sitting here thinking, ooh, we need to go to that one. We need to go to that one.
So this is kind of funny because now I do want to kind of wrap it up with us being able to point people in the right direction. So so if you want to tell us real quick, and then we'll put this in our show notes, and then all throughout the week we're gonna give some
link
resources and link people to you guys so people will know. But just tell us real quick, and then I'm gonna jump on that and tell a little story real fast as we close up.
Okay. So just one thing, I think a lot of people question, am I going to have to talk about my personal situation if I come to a marriage retreat? And the answer is not, unless you choose to do that. Nobody's going to ask you to do that. So we try to create this safe space. The marriage intensives are different because that's what you're there for, is to actually talk about it. So clarification there. But if people are interested, they can just go to winshapemarriage.org. And they can look at all the different retreats. We have them divided up into marriage retreats and then romantic adventures. The other thing I would tell people is they can actually follow us on Instagram and on Facebook, and we put a lot of content out there on social media, thinking about visioning for your marriage, great date nights. We just kind of put some things out that are food for thought for folks. To help them navigate day to day in their marriage in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's awesome. We follow you guys obviously on social media because we always are wanting to learn, and we tell people that all the time. I mean, we share a lot of the marriage ministries that we follow because we are constantly just trying to learn, even in our season of marriage. But back to the website. So Heather and I thought that we were going to potentially have a free plane ticket, or both of us free plane. And we were like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What can we do? And I don't know that it's actually going to work out because it has to be taken like really soon. But I went on your website last night because I knew it would help also as we were, and I've been there a million times before, but I found myself not lost, but just, clicking, this retreat and this retreat and this, and like Heather said, oh, we need to go and do that. But I really did. But here's the thing. Those jokers fill up. You can look I know. So you can look at one that's several weeks away and it'll be, oh, you can get on our waiting list. And I'm like, what? So I'm saying all that because our listeners, go check it out and just have fun figuring out what you and your spouse can do, because there literally is something for everybody. If you want to sit and listen to a speaker, and there's something there. If you want to go do the ropes course and hike and, be in nature together and not have anybody really telling you when to be somewhere and what to do, there's something there too. It's incredible. So I hope that our listeners will do that, because I did that yesterday and was just bouncing around from the different retreats and just got really excited. So Heather and I are going to definitely put that on our calendar in the near future. So that's, hey, is there anything that you want to share before we sign off?
Thank you for the opportunity to just have a conversation about all the things that are happening. I love what you guys are doing. I appreciate your transparency and your encouragement and your willingness to help other people have hope and to know that even though really hard, devastating things happen, on the other side of that, you're not just in a marriage that is surviving. You guys are thriving. And I think that is wonderful and truly a gift from God.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and thank you for what you guys do. We've said a million times, WinShape was a huge part of our marriage recovery, and we'll forever be grateful for that. And just look forward to seeing all the stuff that you guys are going to do in the future and to help future marriages. So, hey, thank you guys, all of you, for listening. We want to hear from you. So if you've got questions about WinShape, about the intensives, please let us know. Just shoot us an email or get in touch with us through social media. We'd love to hear from you. And if we can just pray for your marriage this week, if there's something that you've got on your heart that we can lift up for you, we want to hear from you. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.